I saw a clip recommended to me on Instagram, and look, you can't play Joe Rogan podcast videos or clips without a copyright clearance. Now, the channel will get clipped. You know what I'm saying? So, speaking of clips, right? In the clip, Joe Rogan was not happy with the immigration crackdown. I'm sure you guys are also seeing videos or whatever of like ICE in the U.S. doing raids and capturing people and everything like that. And Joe Rogan says something very specific, where he's like, "Listen, man, I don't really like this, whatever. But when people have been here for like 20 years, have a heart." Obviously, he's referring to the deportation of long-term residents of the United States. So, honestly, in regard to this whole immigration policy and what's going on nowadays, I'm confused by people who are outraged by this to a certain extent, because we kind of knew this was going to happen, by the way. Even in Trump's first term, all he talked about was border security and massive deportations. I remember seeing a tweet where he was talking about deporting millions of people and people supporting him, even though they were literally who he was talking about. He's talking about deporting you and you're supporting him. You know what I'm saying? And he was talking about doing this whole thing that's going on right now. And like social media figures were like, yeah, we got to get this. Next thing you know, they're seeing it happen. They're like, oh man, this is crazy. What about the people here? Yo, this is what confuses me about this. You can't, when people be like, I didn't know he was going to do that. That's crazy to me. And don't take this the wrong way. This video isn't in support or in favor of any political party. But boy, to say, I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know he was going to do that or act like that. Who are you going to get mad at this point? Like, for real, what basis did you vote off of? Now, going back to what Joe Rogan was saying, my family is filled with immigrants, right? But everyone got their paperwork, and we're not criminals. If you're in this country for 20 plus years without paperwork, I don't know what to tell you. Look, I understand that not everyone has these legal accessible pathways to getting their documents or status. I hear you. But the thing is, if you enter this country illegally, even if it was 20 plus years ago, it's very difficult to find an easy way to get your citizenship. But this goes down that rabbit hole, where, if you came to this country 20 plus years ago and you didn't commit a crime or do anything, would you consider it fair for that person to be a target for deportation? Should they've been 20 plus years, they didn't do anything. They've been working, everything. Should they get deported? And obviously this gets into the ethical, political, and semantic discussions. I know somebody whose mom came to America like 50 years ago. She still lives here, but she came to this country 50 years ago illegally. But apparently they didn't fill out some documentation properly because they can't read or speak English. Imagine you can't read or speak English and somebody gives you a form in English and tells you to fill it out. So she filled out the form incorrectly, right? And then she got in trouble for misrepresentation, which is fraud, by the way. And this was 50 years ago. And because of this, she still can't get her citizenship to this day. I don't want to say she never committed a crime because she filled out a form incorrectly. That was in English because she can't speak English. So she did commit fraud. Okay. So I don't want to say she didn't commit crime, but like, you get what I'm saying? Like, is it truly her fault because they're escaping another violent country and can't read or write English and they actually didn't put some documentation information incorrectly 50 years ago? They started a whole family, been working, haven't done anything wrong. So see, everyone has a story, but they're technically not a citizen. Hence why I said, look, 20 plus years and you don't have your paperwork, I don't know what to tell you. You might be in a very screwed up and maybe even, a very unfortunate, complex situation with very limited solutions. And with the current media coverage of these deportation rates and what you're seeing on social media, people are too scared to try to apply for something. That now people are like, oh man, I need to get my citizenship, but like, hey, I'm seeing what's going on right here. I don't want that to happen to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to expose myself or put myself under a microscope, thereby worsening my situation. I heard you could get a waiver or some other stuff, and then that's how you could get your citizenship. But you can't just buy a waiver at a corner store, bro. The point is, it's not that easy. And again, everyone has a story, and it's not always some violent ghetto inhabitation story. So going back to what Joe Rogan was saying, and for the people who agree with him and disagree with him, in my opinion, this is all a matter of perspective. And really, this is why this is going to be such a big problem to deal with, like this whole topic, because I really think it is just perspective. We do need enforcement to uphold borders. I'm all for it. Sorry. However, when doing this, certain people, the people who have been here for a long period of time and haven't committed a crime, or they haven't committed a crime that would be due to systematic issues, like the mom I mentioned, who literally had a language barrier issue. She's been here for 50 years, started a whole family, been working her whole life. Like, we need to be precise with enforcing immigration policy without making the borders of this country weaker. You know what I'm saying? But I've heard arguments, and I think this is a very fair argument. So hear it out. I heard someone say, well, look, hey, if you committed a crime 20 plus years ago and you get caught 20 years later, you get charged, right? Am I wrong? You commit a crime 20 years ago, you get caught 20 years later, you get charged, right? You get caught. You got to go to jail. You got to do time, whatever, the punishment. Such is life of accountability. So if you do something illegal, like illegal entry into a country 20 years ago, well, guess what? You got to face the consequences 20 years later. That's the argument. And I hear that argument. It's just, for me, it's the severity of the crime to why I don't completely agree with it. But at the same time, I do agree with it. I don't know. For me, if you're not hurting anybody and you're working, contributing to society, and have at least signs of good moral character, I don't care if you're in this country, bro. If you're just doing, I don't care, bro. Enjoy. But if you're on the opposite side of that, you are hurting people, criminal activity and so forth, hey, you gotta go. Sorry, but not sorry. We need enforcement for that. But then people are like, well, preventative measures will prevent things like that from happening, like somebody being here and then they do criminal activity and all that stuff. And then, see, it just it's like there's always a counter argument to something. This is a crazy topic, but that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? This episode is found on Spotify and YouTube. I'm out.